When I got the call and he talked about the interim head coach, the first thing that I could only, I think he asked me, "Are you ready for this?" I said, "Absolutely, I am."
Welcome to a new edition of the City Voice podcast. I am extremely excited to have David Critchley sitting here opposite me. Originally, this was planned to be a City 2 head coach episode, but things have changed quite dramatically for you. Welcome to the show. How you doing, David?
Thanks for having me, Pete. Yeah, I'm doing fantastic.
You're fresh off the back of a pretty exciting victory at the weekend. Some worldy goals out there, some debuts. Talk to me, give me a little bit of an overview about how the San Jose game went for you.
It was good. Obviously, I think we started off the game very strong, was able to score 3 goals. Thought we were very good with the ball. And then the second half, we knew there was going to be moments in the game we'd have to weather the storm. They were going to come after us. They were going to try and score some goals, equalise the game. So I saw a lot of quality in the first half. We attacked the opponent well. We had 2 great goals from McSorley, 1 great goal from Cello. And then the second half, for me, it was about grit. It was about determination. It was about not conceding goals. Roman had a fantastic second half with many big saves. So a great game overall, both sides of the ball, and a perfect result.
How was the dressing room after the game?
Exciting. Definitely, to have back-to-back wins on the road, I think it's very important for the players' confidence, for the players' mentality to finish the season off strong. But we enjoyed the moments. We talked briefly about it was a team performance, but there was a couple of highlights in there as well. Like I said, Roman with all of his second half performance saves, McSorley with a couple of goals. We're starting to get some young guys in the team now as well with City 2 players, but even players like Kyle Hebert. Kyle Hebert's last game was when he started was June 25 against Orlando. But he keeps himself ready every day. He's a great professional. He prepared himself for every day, and he played 90 minutes for us. So I was fantastic with a lot of the individual performances, and it was a good locker room.
You mentioned in the press conference after about feeling like the potential turning point. September's been good for you so far. Do you feel like your ideas have finally integrated? Like fitness is coming back, players aren't as injured at the moment. Is that helping the form?
I think so. You always want to have, as a coach, a decision on Friday, which is a difficult decision. Who do you leave in the roster? Who stays home? Who is the starting 11, and who is the guys you're going to bring as subs, right? So that's every single challenge I want every week. And you need a healthy roster for that. You need the full availability of the roster. So we have that now. We're very close to, we've got one guy injured, which is Cedric Tuicha. So we have a lot of players available to choose from. And then the style and the demands that I've tried to bring into this team since stepping in is really starting to see effect on the weekend. We're playing really good intensity, playing really good attacking football. We're starting to really buy into the defensive side now as well. So it's been a great month for us. I go back to the Dallas game, even with the 1-1. We had 43, 44 shots on goal, which I think was tied for maybe an MLS record. So we've shown in the last couple of games we can attack opponents. We're scoring goals, and also we're limiting on the defending side as well, especially from open play. Conceding at times some set pieces that we need to address and talk about, but open play defending is getting much better also.
Great. All right, let's get into your story. The City Voice is about getting under the skin of like who you are as a person. I've known you since day one. It's been fantastic to watch your journey through the ranks. But I really want to talk about where you grew up, what influenced your mindset, and kind of your football philosophy. So where did you grow up?
Liverpool, England.
Is there a story about where your grandparents lived and who was on the road?
The what?
Steven Gerrard.
Yes, sorry. So probably around the block. So, a fifth of a mile or something. So when I was growing up, Steven Gerrard, obviously a Liverpool academy player, came through the ranks, now a global superstar in the game.
Yeah.
Was always just driving by, walking by, running by. So even as a young boy, just going out, and I was playing football on the streets, and he'd always come by, kick a ball around, so on and so forth with you. So it was always nice to watch him grow up through the academy and become, like I said, such a superstar. But live right around the corner from me.
Explain to the City fans what it's like growing up in Liverpool, especially like how integrated soccer is into the local culture with, Everton as well, like a massive club in the same area.
Yeah, it really is. It's like a religion. They always say it's every single day, every conversation at the dinner table, whether you're out for friends with drinks, whether you're at home with your family. The conversation of football and Liverpool and or Everton, if you're a red or blue, is coming up every single day. So it's really ingrained in the community and in the city. You just from the first moment you learn how to walk, you're already got a ball on your foot, so you've already started to play the game. And then from there, you often support whoever your father supported, which whoever his father supported. So thankfully for me, my dad was a Red, which made me a big Liverpool fan.
Yeah, I normally have to ask the question like who introduced you to the game, but it sounds like it was just a way of life, like nobody in particular, or was your dad responsible for like really pushing the passion?
He didn't have to push it at all.
No.
Not at all. He's a big Liverpool fan. He watches every game. Same as my brother. I've been to many games as well, but ever since I was very, very young, I think probably since 6, 7, 8 years old, football's on all the time on TV. You're watching the games, you're watching all the players play. So it was really just integrated into our household from an early age. And then from there, you just learn to use it as an opportunity to go out there and enjoy time with friends. Like you often have friends in high school and growing up based on, are they on your football team or not? So it was just a way of life from an early age.
What position did you play?
Centre mid.
Centre mid. Do you think that gives you an advantage in coaching? There's a lot of centre midfielders that are playing their trade at the very highest level these days. Do you think that having the full view of the pitch and understanding what goes on behind and what goes on in front gives you a bit of an edge?
I think so. If often, especially when I was playing, 25 years ago, if you were in the wide areas, fullbacks, wingers, or forwards, you were fast, you were athletic, you were really skillful with the ball. That was never me as a player. I think I used my brain a lot. I was pretty good in tight spaces, which was the profile of a centre mid back then. So I always had to think ahead about the game. I was never physically one of the dominant players. I always played up a couple of age groups as well at times. So I had to use my brain a lot. I had to think about the game quite a lot. And I think that was the real early introduction into tactics and coaching that I got was as a player at an early age.
Outside Steven Gerrard, who were your sporting icons or just players, not necessarily Liverpool players, that you modelled your game on or looked up to?
Xabi Alonso. I felt like, I know it was a player that came to Liverpool, but also played in some of the other biggest clubs around the world. He was a player that I saw use his brain a lot in the game. Very technically efficient as well, of course, but was such an intelligent, smart player. So that was probably one. And then venturing out of Liverpool, Iniesta, Xavi, small technical midfielders, just saw the game so clearly in their minds, and you could see the way they played. So they were definitely players that I consistently tried to watch every single week. In how did they work on them craft? How did they see the space? How did they make decisions? So they were probably the 3 or 4 players that I really looked up to as a player.
It was a bit of a golden era of central midfielders. I remember Alonso being linked to Arsenal because we had Cesc Fabregas at the time, and Cesc Fabregas, another small midfielder, didn't have the best physical attributes, but like an unbelievable thinker.
I think so. That was the Guardiola era, right? I mean, back at Barcelona, he really started to change what the highest level of players looked like. I think there's always been players that have played at the highest level that had all the physical capabilities and the strength and the power. But I haven't used his name yet. But you look at someone like Messi, who's now at Inter Miami. But back when he was playing, he was a small player, but his footwork was unbelievable. His creativity was on another level. Similar with Xavi and Iniesta, as I'd mentioned. Just they started to redefine the profile of what it was to be successful in specific positions. Midfield is one of them.
How did your play progress? Like, what was there's quite a clear system in the US. What is it like going through the ranks in the UK?
I would say when you're in the academies, it's more structured. You'd have a lot of responsibility on your role within the team and the system in comparison to the US. I think the US looks at a lot of players as the physical profiles that they want to have. So fitness is massive in US soccer. And it's obviously evolved as time's gone on. In Europe, you need fitness as well, of course, but they look at players' vision, they look at players' creativity. How do you see the game? We call it just game IQ in general. So that was one thing that when I came over to the US, I quickly realized is my game IQ was, I think, above average, high, but the physical demands to play in this league and in this country, I had to learn and grow that as I came over to the United States.
It can be a rough place, the US, to play.
It can, especially when you come from Liverpool to Oklahoma. You come into a state that's, when you're playing, August, September, it's 100 degrees. And I was never used to that. So you had to adapt to the physical demands, how much you have to travel for a game, whether it's MLS or college level. You're traveling all over this massive country. So you have to learn how to deal with that. So it's a very demanding game over here in a different way. And you have to just learn how to adjust to it.
So how did you end up in Oklahoma? Liverpool to Oklahoma is not a typical route. What happened there?
So when I was playing, I was bouncing around a couple of academies. I was always on different, watch lists and done some trials and played at some academies throughout England. I finished up my youth career at Morecambe, so it's in League Two. So played there for 2.5 years. And going towards the end of my time, when I realized I wasn't going to get signed in the first team, a scholarship in the United States back in 2008, 2009 was something that everyone was looking at in England. So what happened was I had a few friends of mine from Liverpool already over in Oklahoma. They were at Oklahoma City. So I had a couple of offers from different schools around the country. But knowing I was coming over to a new country by myself, I had a few friends that were in Oklahoma. I was like, okay, if I'm going to get homesick or if I ever need someone to catch up with, these guys are just what I thought at first was just a few minutes away, ended up being like 2 hours away because of the size of the country. But I had some friends there. So I narrowed it down. Oklahoma Wesleyan was a school that inevitably was one that came in, gave me a good scholarship, and I just decided to land there.
What was it? What did it teach you about yourself? I mean, it's nice that it's the same language. You're not traveling to a Spain or Italy where you have to learn a totally new language, but there still is an adaptation to America. What were the biggest hurdles that you had to jump? And I'm not talking like soccer here. I'm talking about just adapting to a new country, being thousands of miles away from home.
I had a good stepping stone. So when I was in Liverpool with my family, up until I was 17 years old, I then transitioned to Morecambe, as I'd mentioned, which was about 2-3 hours away from Liverpool. So those 2 years that I was in Morecambe, I was able to stay there, often Monday to Friday, sometimes come home on the weekend, depending on where the game was. So I had a little stepping stone to independence and living by myself and having to cook my own dinners and so on and so forth. But when you move to a different country and you're not going to get home for 12 months to see your family, you have to learn on how to stand on your own 2 feet. The financial responsibility is one. Being independent and making sure you get to bed of a night time to wake up to train the next morning, because we'd often train at 6 a.m. in college the next day. Yeah, so
to escape the heat.
Escape the heat. Class schedules for some of the players as well. Sometimes 2 a days. So you train, 6 o'clock to 7 o'clock in the morning, and you train again at 4 p.m. So just learning how to stand on your own 2 feet was really important, especially when you move away from your family. So that was probably the biggest adjustment I had to do.
When did you get the inkling that you wanted to have a technical career on the coaching side?
Very early. Even when I came over to the United States at 20 years old, I knew I was going to play 4 years and I was going to try and pursue a career still in the MLS after my 4 years. But even when I was 20, 21, so freshman, sophomore of college, I already started to get into coaching. So I started to coach the local high school team. I started to coach a couple of youth teams. I started to get all my coaching, badges and certifications. Going into my senior year, it was my very early, I think 3rd or 4th game of my senior year. I ruptured my Achilles. So my playing career is done. So then from there, I spent 9 months just away from the game, but still looking at, being excited about what's next for this game. I always knew football, soccer was going to be a big part of my life. So playing is done, what's next? Coaching made the most sense to me. So after my senior year, took a little bit of time off away from the injury and then just dove into, again, all the badges, certifications, and climbing my way up the coaching ladder.
When did you get your first opportunity in a coaching role that felt It's a professional direction that I'm heading in.
Yeah. So once I'd done playing, I spoke to the coach at the university where I was playing. And he said, I was the captain there for 4 years. And he said, hey, after your senior year, why don't you stay around and get your master's degree? And one of the kind of trade-offs for that is you'll be an assistant coach at the college level also, and you'll get your master's degree for free. So I felt like it was a good trade-off.
That's a bit of value there,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I had to do other jobs, like I was a night security officer, so I was working from, midnight till 4 a.m. and then waking up the next day at 9 a.m. to get ready to go, do my master's program and stuff. So I had to learn a lot about time management as well, but I felt like it was a good trade-off, right? So I said, yeah, of course. So I think once I stepped into my master's, the first day after, becoming an undergrad, I was the assistant coach at the university. And then I had 1 or 2 teams that I was still coaching locally. But stepping into the university level, learning how to run training sessions at that level, learn how to manage people, manage players. I felt like that was probably the first introduction to, okay, this is now the journey that I'm going to start to take. And then from there, it's just been, I'm sure we'll talk about, job after job after job, where I felt like it's a career for me.
You're coaching people that were of similar age. How is that? Do you have to adapt to that? Because, I guess at sort of college age, you're always used to having a coach a lot older than you, and all of a sudden kind of somebody that's your peer is telling you what to do. Is that something that you have to learn and adapt to? And did that carry through into, the latest role that you've got where you're a very young coach?
I think so. I definitely learned a lot from those days, 12, 15 years ago, and how to coach people in a similar age, as we mentioned with the role that I have now. I think being a captain for 4 years in the team helped me because I already had a leadership role within the environment, within the club, or the university, should I say. So being a captain definitely helped. But when I transitioned into a coach and you have a different role now, I think the first thing I looked at was these people and these players have to respect me. And not respect me as in me shouting instructions and barking orders at them. I had to get a relationship with them first. I had to get them to see that I care about them. That's the biggest key, the key to success of coaching. If the players know that you care about them, they'll do everything for you. So that's what I had to build at first. I had to build a rapport. I had to build a relationship with the players. Once I built that, I felt like then I could, give them instruction and give them coaching and then support them through that process as well. So that's what I learned 15 years ago, as I mentioned, coaching in the university. And I've took that philosophy all the way until last week, coaching the first team here.
You landed in St. Louis. City wasn't your first job here. Mm-hmm. How did you end up in this city?
Just going through one of my, as I mentioned, I was trying to get a lot of coaching certifications and badges at an early age. And one of them was the United States Federation B license. So when I was on Oklahoma, I applied for the job. I came into the course and it was in St. Louis. And being on that course, there was a lot of coaches here that were St. Louis coaches as well. So I came down for a couple of different meeting blocks while I was getting the license. And one of them was the general manager of Lou Fuse. And we got to meet, we got to connect as Dan Gargan. So ex-player in the MLS, played at LA Galaxy for many, many years. So throughout the course, we just connected. We were in the same small group together. So we were running a lot of the training sessions together, collaborating on lesson plans. And then towards the end of that course, he gave me a call and said, hey, there's a role that I'd like you to come over to here at Lou Fuse. It's a technical director. So we'd love to bring you over. Would you be interested? So I thought about it. I felt like I'd been in Oklahoma at this point for 9 years. So I felt like a challenge and a change was needed in my career. So I said, yeah. So I came over and I was the technical director of Lou Fuse.
City was building a club. They won an MLS franchise. Were you paying attention to that at the time? And did you have your eyes set on potentially trying to see if you could get a role over here as well?
Yes. I always said when I started to coach, I'm a highly ambitious coach. So for me, I always wanted to coach at the highest level possible in this country. It's the MLS. So even when I was going through coaching university, coaching youth teams, I always had a goal to coach in the MLS. So once I was in St. Louis and I found out about the franchise being here, of course it gained my attention. It happened in a very unique way. So I mentioned how I got the job at Lufuse. It was on my B license. I'm coaching at Lufuse for a couple of years. I'm a technical director. So a lot of that is overseeing coaching development, program development, player development. But I wanted to get my A license. So obviously within that, you have to have a hands-on team that you work with. So I spoke to Dan. I said, hey, I'm gonna go after my A license here. I'm gonna have to coach a team. Is there a specific team we want to work with that we think would be good for this project for me and good for the team? And we landed on a 2005 boys team. So within that, I started to create training sessions, coach them in some games. A couple of months go by. That's the team and that's the age group that City was going to look at for the U17 team for year one. So that's when Lutz started to come over, watch training sessions and watch games and keep an eye on the players. So ever since then, I started to build a relationship with Lutz. And then we were talking about opportunities for me to come over. So that was when I really found that it would be an opportunity for me to join the club.
Serendipity.
I think so, yeah.
What was his pitch?
I remember specifically a few times, again, I'd mentioned he'd been at the training sessions, he'd been in our games, he was watching these guys play. And there was one week when I was in the gym and I was on a treadmill and trying to keep myself in shape, right? So I'm running on the treadmill, I'm probably 45 minutes in. So as you know, 45 minutes into the treadmill, you're pretty gassed. And my phone goes and it's Lutz and I'm like, okay, I have to answer this. So I answer it and I made the first mistake of I kept running on the treadmill while I answered the call. So I'm out of breath, but he's explaining to me how he'd like to sit down and meet with me and talk about potentially me coming over to the club. So, he brought me in. I think we went to a local restaurant in Clayton.
City Grill?
It wasn't that one. I think is it Hebe's? Is that?
Oh, no, I did.
Hebe's. So he took me over there and just said, look, I enjoy the style that you coaching. I like the way the team plays. That's some of the philosophy that I'm trying to implement here. Would you be interested? For me, it was a no-brainer.
What was the first role that you took here?
U16 head coach.
How did that go for you?
It was a good first year, but we had a great group of players.
Because this is the first ever. I mean, there's nothing here. You're literally building from scratch, right?
Yeah, two teams. One team, one U16 team, one U17 team. So probably a pool of 40 players. So I stepped in as the U16 head coach. Throughout that time, that was my first role, as I said. Throughout that time, the objective was to try and build success within the mentality of the players and how they play, and look to develop players to push into the U17 team, which then the following season would be a City 2 group. So I had a developmental mindset on me, but also wanted to compete, wanted to show how to build a winning culture here and a winning team. And we had a good team. We had a great group of players, players like Tyson Pierce, his age group, Caden Glover, his age group. So good quality players. But that was my first role, U16 head coach.
Were you nervous heading into that first season? Does it always feel kind of make or break in these situations that you've got to constantly prove yourself?
Yes, because every single youth coach in the country should want to coach and be a head coach of an academy team. So you do feel a little bit of pressure in there. Within that, though, it is development football still. So as much as there is some pressure on the job, you have to also know it's a developmental role for a coach and for the team. So it's a place to experiment. I'm so grateful because everything I experimented with the U16s, with the U17s, even with City 2, I succeeded in a lot of areas and I failed in a lot of areas as a coach. But it prepared me for the job that I have now, which is the interim head coach for this first team.
Yeah, explain that for me.
Just whether it's session design. You need to be innovative as a coach. So there's probably many sessions that if I go back and look at my library from, let's just call it 10 years ago when I started the journey, there'd be so many exercises I'd look at and be like, ooh, I've done that. Up until today, I feel like you have to go through that as a coach. You have to learn how to develop good exercises, and when you develop exercises that aren't good, you throw them in the trash and you develop a new one. You be innovative. Or how to talk to a team at halftime. You at this level, you only have a few minutes. You have 15 minutes on the clock, but you only have 5 or 6 minutes in front of the team. So what I learned for my entire journey up until this was how to be really efficient in talking to players, specifically at this level when you have, all of the stress, all of the, let's just call it the time crunch of a half time. You get 6 minutes. How do you deliver a game plan for the second half in that amount of time? You have to be pretty efficient in how you talk. So I learned that going through the ranks and going through all the years of experience of halftime talks. So they're the type of details that you learn through your journey.
I find that people that come from Liverpool generally have a directness about their manner, and watching you in press conferences, you are very clean in the way that you deliver language and comms. Is directness a big part of that? And how do you balance directness with coming across abrupt?
Yes. First of all, that is the way it is in Liverpool. I'll be very direct in a lot of the conversations I have. And I think really because efficient communication for me is if you can say something in 15 words, you say it in 15 words. It doesn't take 50. So you tack that on with what I said, two things. The players, they want to be talked to in a direct manner. They want to receive the information you need to give them as quickly as possible. And then secondly, in this type of job where things are moving at 1,000,000 miles an hour all the time, whether it's talking to my players, talking to my staff, you have to be very, very efficient and very clear with what you want to get out of a certain situation. So the efficiency for me is super important in communication.
The innovative coaching plans that you talk about, is that just about having something exciting in training? Like there is a technical balance, but you've also got to keep players engaged, right? Is that why you're always trying to bring something new to the table so it doesn't feel monotonous or repetitive? Or is there something deeper? Like what's the purpose behind like constant innovation in your work life?
I think it shows, first of all, humility that you always want to grow and you always want to evolve. I'm always speaking about the game will evolve every single year. So you have to be in a situation where you evolve as a coach. And within that, you have to design certain training sessions or, tactics or systems. You have to evolve all the time. I think that's the first one. The other one for me is I always like to surprise players. I never want things to become stale. Mm-hmm. So I'll always be in a situation where when the players show up, if they can almost read off a script what I'm going to do Monday to Friday, where's the growth in that? Where's the challenge? Where's the stimulus that I can give the players? So I always try to find new exercises. It doesn't have to be a brand new exercise. I can have the same idea, but even if I just change a couple of, I don't like to use the word rules, I use conditions a lot. If I just change a couple of the conditions to drive behavior, that's what I try to do within my training sessions. So if we're playing a 6v6 game, a couple of the conditions I could have, I'll give you an example of this, is I noticed with the first team a lot, when we scored goals early in my time of stepping in, when we'd score a goal, we had this behavior of, okay, we've done all the work, we've scored our goal, now we're going to drop off and absorb this pressure. And I was like, no, when we've scored and we have the momentum, we go score again. And we go score again. So in small-sided games, a condition that I would always bring in, if we score a goal in a small-sided game, you have about 30 to 45 seconds where if you score again, I'll give you 2 goals. So you can be up 1-0 in 6v6, and then you'll see Roman, we've just scored, he'll grab the ball quickly, he'll throw it in, and you can see the players trying to get another goal. And they know the condition of the game is now they score again, they're up 3-0, then 5-0. And you see this belief in them, then they score, we go again. So that's been one condition. Another condition, early on when I stepped in, we conceded way too many goals after the 70th minute in football games. When we train on the Wednesdays, that's our big space game. We often play 11v11. So what I would do is whatever the time was, if we're going to do 20 minutes, I would figure out what was the 70th minute and that kind of like percentage of that. And I would say after this, I'd stop the game. I'd be like, this is our 70th minute on Saturday. Do not concede another goal in this game. Try and win it by scoring again. And then you would see after in a training session, right at the end when they're already tired, I'd be like, guys, this is the 70th minute. This is where we need to become more intense, more communication, more aggression. And then you start to see in the 70th minute in the training session, you'd start to see the level rise, even when they're tired. And that's me trying to build conditions that I want to see on the weekend. So there's 2 examples of probably 50 that I've done with the first team already.
So your style of coaching, there's some coaches that build systems around their own attack in play and everyone has to adapt to them. And then there are some coaches that build their system around what's going to happen to them. What's the balance with you for like your match days? How much are you thinking about the opposition versus thinking about the things that you're doing?
I think trying to control the controllables is the first thing that I have in my mind. So stepping into this role, I identified what is the roster I have? What are the players that we have? And how can I utilize every player's strength? And that was for me the biggest piece, was going through each player individually, looking at their profile. How can I utilize their biggest strengths and potential? So then you start to, within that, build training and build I don't want to say a philosophy, but build a system in how you want to play. And then going into the weekend, you try to find small, I always call it like the 1%ers. Like try to find the small margins to where you could be successful. If I go back to just the most recent game with San Jose, we knew Sangbin was left on personal reasons back home. But with them building in a back three, with having an expansive back three, we knew we could attack the right space on the field quite frequently and quickly. So our players like McSorley's profile, who likes to run in behind, was very, very important for us. So you try to utilize your players' strengths and control the controllables. Then within that, you try to figure out where's the small margins of success that you can give them every single week and every single game.
Okay, so let's we diverged on that script, but we haven't even got into like your 2025, which has been a bit of a whirlwind, right? You got the promotion to City 2 coach. That was a big move. That was a big, exciting move. You probably thought that you were done there, but you weren't. We'll talk about how you transitioned into the first team. But picking up City 2, crowd sizes can be 3,000 to 11,000. How important was that move to you, and how exciting was that? You're getting players that are knocking on the door of first team. You've got a really good crop of players that are having a lot of success. Talk to me about how proud you were when you got the nod for that role.
I was extremely grateful and excited. Obviously very grateful for the leadership and ownership team for trusting in me, coming through the ranks in the academy to now lead the second team. So I was extremely excited. And as you'd referenced, it is a jump. You go from coaching academy football into the second team, where you're now playing in stadiums. You're working with. It's a very interesting position, because you have three groups of players. You have academy players that are very, very talented and successful, which are knocking on the door of the second team. Then you have as you mentioned, your crop of second team players. And then you'll also have first team players coming down to get opportunities, to get minutes, to get fitness, to get exposure, for all these different reasons, right? So you have groups of players that you have to learn how to manage. As the second team coach, I had to coach Edu Leuven in one game. I think it was the Portland game, right before the job. So you're managing and coaching.
Fun game.
Very fun game. 6-3, I think the final score, somewhere around there. So you have to learn how to coach and manage someone like a profile of Edu Leuven versus a talented, I didn't work with him directly, but Eddie Niles right now, I think he's 14 years old. So it was exciting. It was a good challenge for me to step in and take the reins and take the responsibility for the second team. And we had a flying start. We had a really good start, very successful in the results, but also very successful in how we trained and how we prepared ourselves. In pre-season, we spent a lot of time talking about culture, talking about expectations, talking about standards. So you try to start there. You try to build a good culture, a good mentality within the group, and then you start to implement your philosophy and your playing style. And the guys just took it on very, very well, very quickly. Started to get some really good results and playing some really attractive football as well.
What are the principles of the Critch culture?
I think for me, the biggest one was, it was very clear at this club from day one, in my opinion, on how we wanted to be against the ball. The aggression, the intensity, how we want to press high up the field, how we want to turn teams over in the final third. I felt like we myself needed to evolve, and we needed to evolve as a club with the ball in how we attack and how we play. So for me, it was identifying what does that look like with the ball? How aggressive do we need to be? How do we get to goal very, very quickly when we're in the opponent's half? How do we draw in the opponents deep in our own half to open up space in behind? So these were a lot of things that I thought about in my, let's just call it the winter period, where I was kind of just building my playbook. And then it was a great opportunity to go in and as I said, not experiment, but to utilize these certain concepts that I have with profile players for second team level. And one of the biggest ones was how do we attack? How do we score goals? How do we entertain and excite the fans? I'm sure we'll get there later with the first team, but that was the biggest objective for me. I was very clear in how we should defend. I wanted to make this club very clear in how we should attack.
Part of being a City 2 coach is dealing with roster chaos, in the sense that you never know who's coming down and you never know who you're going to lose. Like, you're obviously a guy that likes to win, and then all of a sudden 2 of your players are in the first team and it puts a hole in your side. How do you build an organization that can deal with those sorts of blows?
You always have to have a product and a mentality that's the next man up, that's the next guy up. And first of all, we, even with City 2 or the academy, we'd always celebrate the moments where players got the opportunity to move up the ladder, as we would say, and get closer to first team football. So we wanted to win, we wanted to be successful, but I would never jeopardize, at the City 2 level, I would never jeopardize the development of an individual. Now within that, what I had to make sure I would do as a coach is, if a player moved up, that the next player would be prepared and be ready for that, mentally, physically, technically, tactically. The next player has to be ready to have what I always say is sustained success. I don't just build a philosophy and a team for the immediate, short-term success. I try to build it for months and years of success. And one way to do that is to always make sure that you as a coach are developing player 1 all the way down to player 24 with the same passion, intensity, planning. That's so important for me.
And you're dealing with young men that all of a sudden have a profile, they're athletic, they're on, the big stage for a 2 team, the biggest stage for a 2 team, in my opinion. And no club has more people showing up for their second team than St. Louis. How do you help them with the ego side of things? Because there are massive highs. You get called up to the first team, and then there can be crushing lows. Like, it feels like there's no in between when you're a soccer player, especially when you're young. But you've got to deal with I don't want to say wreckage, but it can be, right? It can be really difficult to deal with the emotions, especially when you're a young man and like things do feel a lot more intense. Like, there's a lot of scrutiny on what you're doing. How do you manage those sides of the game?
That's been something that some of my philosophy has changed and adjusted as I've gone through the ranks and gone up the ranks, and some things will remain constant with me. This is one that remains constant. How I deal with human beings and how I deal with people. First of all, they need to know I support them. They need to know I'm there for them, and I'll always care for them. If they have the highest of highs and their ego is getting a little too inflated, I'll bring them back down to earth. But I'll still support them. If they have just been crushed by some news or a poor performance, I'll be there to pick them up. So for all my players, I'm there to support them. That's the first one. But then I'm there to bring them down when they need to be brought down, and I'm there to pick them up when they need to be picked up. And whether that's with first team players or whether that's with academy players, that's one of the constants I've kept in my core philosophy as a coach.
This is just a small observation, but I am thinking back to that Portland game. Edu comes down and he looked like he was having a lot of fun. And you said that he trained with you. How important is it having first team players that show respect and deference to you when you come down, but also they treat the young players the way they would want to be treated?
Yeah, Edu's a great example of that, because first and foremost, before I talk about him as a player, him as a person, he is such a top level professional. So when he came down and trained with us for a few days, nothing changed with him. Because now I coach him every day in the first team. His intensity and how he trained with the second team was the same as how he trained with the first team. So he comes down and he leads by example. I think that's the first one that I observed when he came down in that week for Portland. And then he comes in, he plays for us. He gives obviously a fantastic performance, but then I believe we had 2 penalties, if I remember correctly, in this game. And he gave both opportunities to Mackay to take them. We know he's the penalty taker for the first team. But his humility to say, there you go, Mackay, take that for this group, was just another sign of him as a human being. as a player, for someone like him to come down and for some of our City 2 guys or our academy guys to watch how he finds spaces, how he manipulates the ball, how he gets out of trouble with his first touch or his creativity, that's as much as I think I can coach that, watching that from the highest of levels, that's how the players learn quickly. So that was a unique situation for us when he came down. But it was also a great one because he was able to teach the players in just as few days of training with us in the game. He was able to teach the players weeks of what I would deliver to them in words. He showed them in actions in a few days.
Did it make you proud that even after you moved on to the interim role, they carried on the success and, had a really good season?
Yes, because again, I'll go back to this word, sustained success. One of my situations with that, or one of my beliefs in that is, even if I'm not there working day in, day out with them, I left a legacy, even in a short time, in how you should train, how you should compete, and that's continued under the fantastic experience of Dale and Hach leading these group of players now. So it's been fantastic to watch them continue to be successful. I think they're just a few points away from. They've already obviously won the conference, but now winning the entire MLS Next Pro League, or being a number 1 seed. So that's been something that I've been very excited to watch them continuing to be successful on the field week in, week out.
Do you ever sort of wander over to training or speak to any of the players that are competing right now?
Yeah. I've been over to training a few times. I obviously go to all the games at home when I can, when the schedule allows. I've been over to training a few times. It's hard because we pretty much overlap with each other. So I'm always preparing something for the first team at this point. But I've got to watch a few sessions. But the way this facility is designed, the infrastructure here, most of my time where I can interact with those players is in the cafeteria. So whether that's the eating lunch after I've come in from training, having breakfast. So I get to still keep the relationship with a lot of these players now, even though I'm not directly working with them, because of how we've set up the infrastructure here of having the second team and first team, under the same roof together.
Great. Let's talk about the interim role. Tough start to the year. Things weren't going well. You get the call. What went through your head? Was it expected? Was it unexpected?
I felt like there was going to be change that happened or needed to happen. I wasn't quite sure of the extent of it. So when I initially got the call from Lutz, it was, I believe, a Monday night, and it was 10 o'clock at night, and it was just like, hey, I need to speak to you tomorrow. Can you come in? And I said, yeah, okay. So I came in and we talked, and I wasn't quite sure at that point whether it was going to be, hey, we need you to step in as an assistant role and maybe help out with the training environment, or whether it was going to be inevitably to get the call to be the interim head coach. So when I got the call and he talked about the interim head coach, the first thing that I could only, I think he asked me, are you ready for this? I said, absolutely, I am. So it wasn't expected maybe, but I wasn't surprised. I don't know if you can find a middle ground between that for me, but it was kind of somewhere in between.
We chatted about first team in a coffee shop like 3 months earlier, about like what your philosophy is and how you interpret the system. I'd like tell the City fans what is Critchley, because there's the basic philosophy, which every team at the club plays to, but there are different variants. And we were having a conversation about how different managers around the world play this system. Explain to fans what they're looking at with your world, which it feels like it's getting a lot closer to the promised land of where you want it to be.
Yeah, this is something that for many, many years I tried to define and redefine. And it started with, if you asked me my philosophy 10 years ago, I probably would have gave you a booklet of an answer or a 15-minute spiel on what it was. So I tried to define it down to, I want to play really exciting, entertaining football. That is the core belief of how I see the game being played around the world. When you look at the most successful teams, it's entertaining and exciting. Very often do we all switch on the TV to watch a team, and if they are not entertaining, even if they're successful, we might not turn the TV on every single week to watch them. So then I said to myself, okay, regardless of the result, if you're at Energizer Park and the moment the final whistle goes, if you're already excited to watch us again next week, that's the philosophy and the style I want. You know, if you turn on the TV, regardless of the San Jose result, it's always easier when you win the game. Regardless of that San Jose result, if you could have blared out the top left side of the screen and not known what the game score was, and you said, man, I'm excited to watch them play again next week. That's the philosophy that I have. Now we've got styles, systems, concepts, principles. That's where we can go for hours on conversation. But my big philosophy within the game is create entertaining, exciting football.
So you land in a dressing room that's having some problems. You've got fitness issues, you've got injuries, the results aren't going their way. Most coaches get 6-week preseason. They get a full selection of players to choose from. You did not come into that situation. This is your first major role. What's the first thing you do?
Yes. You fix the culture. You try to, when I say you fix the culture, what I mean by that is you try to install what you want to see Monday to Friday happening, because that's where coaches really control them situations, is the training environment, the training field. So the first thing I tried to do was get everybody, and the culture that I want is everybody to enjoy themselves, everybody to have fun. If we're going to talk about how I'm going to teach players and teach them a system and a style, they have to first and foremost want to be here and want to enjoy themselves and want to love what they do. And that was the first thing I tried to fix, is get everybody coming in, enjoying every single day. So the first ever slide, I've probably shown 500 presentations to this group since I've stepped into this role. The first ever slide was a screenshot of every single player with what I would say is one of the biggest smiles on their faces that I've seen through their time here. And it was every individual on one slide. And I said, I want more of this. This is step one. Let's get everybody to enjoy themselves. Let's get everybody to want to be here and want to get better. So that's the culture that I want to fix. Then after that, you have to look at what practically did we need. In the first half of the season, I believe we scored 11 goals in 15, 16 games. You can't score that few of goals and expect to be a playoff team and expect to be a successful team. So in the last, I think I've had 16 games, we've scored 28 goals. So the next one, after fixing the culture and what that means for me, I had to practically look at, what does the team need? They need more goals. They need more attacking football. So that was the next fix. Then the next fix after that was, okay, we're scoring a lot of goals, but we're leaking some goals. For example, the 3-2 Chicago, 3-2 Vancouver, and 3-2 Houston. We can score all these goals, guys, but if we're going to concede, we're also going to lose football games. So then where we're at now is, how do we fix the defensive side of the game? What does it mean for me? What is my philosophy and mentality with how we defend? I think you've seen a really good example in the last 3 games. I'll take you back. Dallas, 1-1. Unfortunately, the goal we gave away was we shot ourselves in the foot. We played out of a situation we shouldn't have played out. We learned from that moment as a team. But Musa has, and I think the team have, maybe 3-4 shots in total in the game. And they end up finding 1 goal. And then you go to Montreal, clean sheet. Really good defensive intensity, behaviors from everybody. And then we come up against San Jose. And we come up against San Jose, who is, I think they scored 55 goals on the season. It might have been the highest in the league. And we said to ourselves, okay, how do we want to defend this team? What's the mentality? What's the commitment? What's the sacrifice we're going to need? And we've done a great job. I know we conceded the penalty kick, but in open play, we conceded 0 goals against them. Roman had some great saves. I'm not going to hide from the fact that there were still moments where we have to improve. But the last 3 games is a good example of now fixing the third step, which is the defensive side. So that's kind of been the process that I've stepped in since day one to where we're at today. I think we're in a really good place moving forward.
Was part of the role of fixing the attack, instilling confidence in players who've got a lot of talent, but maybe didn't look as confident in front of goal, or maybe didn't feel as connected to the moment?
Yes, I'll take you back to a story I had with Klaus as an example, talking about attacking players. So you look at your highest player up the field. So my first ever meeting with him, I told Klaus, I said, there'll be there'll be two things that we change here with your behaviors right away. The first one is we're not going to have you defend as the highest player anymore 24 yards from our goal. For example, being in a low block. We're going to push up every single line of the field and we're going to defend much, much higher up the field. So you're going to start to press a lot higher up the field, closest to the goal. I said in this, that's the first one. So I'm going to need you to help set the line of confrontation much, much higher for this team. The second one behind that we'll fix is how many opportunities you're going to now have as an attacking player on this team. So that's the first one, is changing not the first one, but that was one of the situations, was how do I change the system? How do I change going from a back five to a back four? How do I go from a low block to a high block? How do I go from a mentality of we're not going to absorb pressure in our own half to we're going to try and strip them of the ball in their half? So the system was something I had to change, but then, as you mentioned, the confidence of the players. The one last week against Montreal. So we have a good quick attack. We play the ball in the box to Critchley. He takes his first touch and then a little back heel to Cello to lead to a fantastic goal. That was a player that's high on confidence. He's coming off many, many goals in the last couple of weeks of play. So he's confident in them moments. I'm not saying he wouldn't have done that early in the season, but Klaus probably wasn't as confident early in the season. Does he have that vision and composure to find Cello? Maybe he does. He had the ability to do it because we saw it. But the confidence is a big one for us. So that was kind of one of the things I talked about earlier is getting more confidence with these players on the ball. It started in the training environment, scoring lots of goals in training, setting them up in finishing activities, setting them up in conditioned games to where when they score one, they go get another one. They go get another one. And that was building confidence with the attacking players. And I think we're seeing it a lot lately with all the goals we've been scoring.
You also, when you're playing a low block, it's naturally a low margin system. So low chances with the hope of, high conversion. Like, you talk through all of the things you're changing. So you're coming in mid-season and you're asking to change like everything all at the same time. That must be tough, and that must be tough for the players to do, because when things don't go right, that must affect belief. How do you keep players focused on, you're doing the right things? You might not be getting the results, but if we keep on doing these things, good times will hopefully come.
Absolutely. I think the first thing that I was very impressed with these players, and they get all the credit, was we came in and we changed a lot. We changed the system. We changed our training behaviors. We changed the culture. We changed a lot of things for these players midway through the season. I think I came into the job, my first day was the Wednesday leading into the San Jose. So you get, the first day, Wednesday, you get 3 days with them, and then you've got a game. And then ever since then, it's week after week, it's game after game. We've not had the results that I thought maybe we were going to get as much. I thought we were going to pick up a few more points. But every week, these guys come back, even after a tough loss. These guys come back excited to keep learning, excited to keep developing and growing. So that's been something that I've been so proud of with this group of players, is when we were getting beat 3-2, 3-2, 3-2, they kept coming in. Okay, where can we get better? Okay, how can we get better? Their belief in me, I think, is something that I've took as really personal and been very, very proud of. We try to utilize situations like data. We try to help them understand, even if the result might not be going our way, i.e. the final score. In first team sports, the result of the game is very, very important. But there's other results. There's other results in how many shots are we generating? What are our KPIs? Are we hitting our KPIs? Because if we keep doing that over the short term, we'll find long-term success. So we've used a lot of data with this group to show, hey, we're not there yet, i.e. the final score, but let me show you how much we are getting better as a team.
You spoke very early on about, to me, before it all went public, the connection with the fans was the most important thing. You've come from a local culture where managers' connections with the fans is absolutely massive. Everybody's seen Jurgen Klopp doing the fist pump. Fans have been here every step of the way, supporting you and the players. We're still filling out and packing the park. Talk to me about how important the fan support has been through really difficult times, because ultimately fans want to see results. It's been a mixed bag, and they're still there.
Yeah, it's been so exciting to watch. Before I talk about that, I'll talk about like we were at San Jose this weekend. This was probably one of the biggest games of their season. They had to get 3 points, and it was probably a stadium that was probably half full, less than half full, if I was being honest. And then you come to Energizer Park, and where we're at in the standings, we're in a position where if you looked at our Energizer Park on the weekend, you wouldn't, and you didn't know the standings where we were, you would not think we were where we was in the table. Because we show up, they're loud, they're energetic, they're supporting us through every moment. The one example that really stood out to me this year, we go down at home. We're turning the tide. We're going in the right direction. I think we've had a lot of good performances. And then we come up against Houston at home. And it should never have been this scoreline, but we found ourselves down 3-0. And we found ourselves down 3-0. And I remember just looking around in the 80th minute. Usually when I'm coaching, I'm so ingrained in just the 11 players or the 22 players on the field and what's going on. But I look around, and I had this moment as a coach. I look around in the 80th minute, I'm like, everyone's still here. Everyone's still supporting the team. That made me realize just how good our fan base is, how good St. Louis City support is. Even when we're going through these difficult moments, the amount of conversations I've had, whether I'm just walking around at the mall, whether I'm at the end of a game walking around the field, seeing people just in my daily life, the amount of support that I felt from these fans in just encouragement, like, keep going. I can see improvements. We can see where we're going. Keep going. It's so overwhelming in a positive way. And that's been, for me, an absolute fantastic experience over the last 3 months, is the support of this fan base.
Something else City fans really enjoy seeing is young players getting their chance in the first team. If your time has been defined by anything, for just on a personal level, it's taking risks, bringing young players into the fold and creating exciting moments off the back of it. And we're just coming off a brace from McSorley at the weekend, which was really exciting. Talk to me about bringing in young players into the side, but the difficulties, because integrating young players into difficult moments can sometimes have an adverse effect. How has it been for you, and what messaging do you give these guys?
Well, the first thing I would say is, if I ask my team to be brave, I think you see that how we play the game. We build out the back when we need to build out the back. We defend high up the field when we need to defend high up the field. So asking the team to be brave, I can't ask them to be brave if I'm not going to be brave. So I have to be willing to make hard decisions, to make brave decisions as a coach. For example, we know where we are in the standings, but bringing in young players, giving players like Tyson Pierce many weeks ago his opportunity to play in a game, giving a lot of these City 2 guys as of late opportunities to play in the game. I have to be brave and make decisions and tough calls like this. The players, the first team players have done an unbelievable job at accepting these young players into the group and supporting them. In these moments where it can be really high pressure for these young players. So I need to show bravery as a coach by giving opportunities to players if I feel like they're ready. But then the first team players help me so much by welcome these guys into the group with open arms.
When they have moments like scoring 2 goals in their debut, does that feel good? I mean, how much does that help the development of someone like McSorley, doing things like that? The belief.
Yeah, it helps. It helps Brendan a lot. He gets his first start. He's a confident young man. I'll tell you that before we talk about the goals. But he's a confident young man, and even though it was a tall order for him to come into this game and compete and start, I had all confidence that he was going to do well in the game. I didn't know he was going to get 2 goals and an assist and a goal line clearance as well, but I felt like he was going to do well. And the only reason why is, again, being very objectively driven. He's had a few really good weeks of training. He comes in, he trains really well with these guys. He scores goals in the training environment as well. So I felt like he was really prepared, mentally, physically, technically, tactically. He's really prepared for this game. But then he comes in and he impacts the game with 2 goals, with an assist, with a goal line clearance. It does 2 things. It does, A, wonders for him individually, and B, wonders for every other young player in this club to see that and be excited about that. Like, my opportunity could come. And when it does, I have to be ready and I have to take it, just like Brendan did.
Fitness has been a hot topic this year. You came into a system with a lot of injuries. When there's a lot of injuries, you have less players to choose from, which causes more injuries, and you get into a horrible cycle. It feels like you've got out the back end of that. You've got a good relationship with Jared. Talk to me about how important the relationship is with a performance director, because it's a modern relationship not many people talk about, but it's very present at the elite level in the game. What was your approach?
Yeah, it's extremely important. So unless you're in it day to day, as you'd mentioned, it doesn't get talked about a lot. But the head coach's relationship with the performance director is massively important, because every time I develop a training session, every time I develop a weekly, we call it a periodization plan, you have to understand that with such high intensity, high recovery is super, super important. High preparation for the following week is super, super important. So getting Jared's expertise on these situations is always key and is always crucial. So I've always been very close with Jared, even before stepping into this role. We've had a good relationship, and now that I've stepped into this role, we work very closely together. As you'd mentioned, we had a lot of injuries when I first stepped in, and the injuries for the first couple of weeks, while I'm going to say this, changed the culture, I changed the intensity in training. So we might have picked up a few extra injuries along the way, but we're seeing ourselves now in a really good position in two fronts. The one is the injuries that we've had, and knock on wood, is keeping that as low as possible. But the secondary part of that is every game or post every game, I get given a physical report from Jared on how we've done as a team, every individual, how we've done as a team, and then how we've done as a team in comparison to the rest of the country. Distance covered, how much sprints we have. And the last few weeks, we've been right up there in every single category. So we're getting better technically and tactically as a team. We're getting so much fitter as a team, and the injuries are happening less. I have to give massive shout out to Jared, to Tyler, to the entire performance and medical team. They're doing a good job for us now, keeping these guys recovered and prepared for the following week for my demands and my intensity as a head coach. Fantastic.
Has there been a real standout moment since you took on interim role that's given you a outsized amount of pride?
Many. There's been a lot. I'm trying to think of one that really comes to my mind. I think the celebration game or exhibition game, which was a celebration for us against Aston Villa, was great, because we know they're in pre-season, but you're still playing an EPL team. You're still playing a team of the highest caliber of professionals around the world in this sport. And it was a good, exciting game. It was entertaining. We've shown that we can compete by utilising, again, a lot of our roster as well. Every game I learned something new about this team. I learned what we do well, where we need to improve. The Dallas game for me a few weeks back, I think, was a turning point. We go into the Dallas game and show such, I know it was 1-1 on the scoreline, but such a dominating performance. We know they have a red card early in the game, maybe changes a few of our setups that we prepared for, but I think, again, we had 43, 44 shots in the game. Field tilt, which for all of those that don't know what that is, it's how much of the ball you have in the final third for the opponent. It was 86%. So such a dominating performance. That was the moment where I looked at this group and I was like, I know it's FC Dallas, they're not maybe top 3, top 4 in the conference, but I was like, we went out there and performed so well. Since then, we've had now moments like Montreal, a clean sheet, an away win. Then we go in and we have the San Jose back-to-back away wins. We know away wins at this club have been so far and few. So to go back-to-back in consecutive weeks, so important. So I think the Dallas game was a real good start as an indicator to where this group is going.
Fantastic. What does the rest of the season look like?
To try and pick up as many points as possible. To try and compete. That's something that we've talked about as a team. We want to finish the season strong. So we want to do that now by performing well every single game. But we've talked about this a lot as a team as of late. We want to perform well, but we also want to pick up points. It's no good to just say, hey guys, we perform well every single week, but we just lost by a goal. Now it's really starting to pick up results with the performances and how we want to do it. And within that, as a coach, you try to balance everything. The last 2 games we've had, I think both games we had 3 City 2 guys on the field as the final whistle, as the game finished. So you have to balance a couple of different things, but we want to be competitive. We want to pick up as many points to close out the season.
And we have a tradition on the show that the last message is for the fans in the stadium that are watching on TV, that are talking to you when you're in a schnooks. So I hand it over to you.
I think 2 things. The first one is have hope. I've seen so much growth from this team Monday to Friday. We're now starting to see it on Saturday night in the games. We've had three good results as of late. The last 2 wins away has been fantastic. So this team is turning around. This team is going in the right direction. And I'm so excited for the future for this team. But the biggest one and the second one is a big, massive thank you to the fans. I have seen such a committed group of supporters and fans in St. Louis. I've felt their presence every day being in this job. The amount of support they've shown me as a coach, the amount of support they've shown the team is admirable, and just a massive thank you.
Well, that takes us to the end of the first solo episode. This is the first solo one that we've done together.
First solo one, yeah.
It's been a pleasure listening to you talk through the ups and downs of the season so far. Wishing you the best for the rest of the season. And if you are listening to this on one of your podcast channels, give us a little 5-star review. Tell us what you thought of the interview. And on that note, say ciao for now.